I brought horses out to an unbridged island, and it was single-handedly the most impractical and expensive thing I've ever done. I'm going to share with you how and why I did it, the ups, the downs, the difficulties, the successes, so as to inspire you to partake in that crazy wild journey that you've been dreaming of. Because, call me crazy, but I think we are collectively better off when we are living out our dreams. I think we have a lack of meaning epidemic. People are just soul tired. And I felt that within myself a year ago. I finally just decided enough is enough. I'm not getting any younger. Life's not getting any easier. The heavens didn't part and tell me now is the time. I just got tired of feeling like there has to be more to life. So I took a first step. I didn't really know what that would have to be, but I knew that I would need a truck to transport horses and hay. So I flew out to Arizona, bought a rust-free truck, drove it back east, and then I was like, okay, what next? I've got to learn how to train horses, because my dream was really to train horses, and specifically Mustangs, because there are just so many Mustangs that need to be adopted. And yeah, that had just always been a dream of mine, to train my own horse. So I reached out to someone in Maine who trains Mustangs. Shout out to Alicia with Mustang Meadows. She was incredible. She taught me so much. And she also had a mare that I happened to fall in love with. And by the time that she offered her up for sale, I knew that I had to have her and I couldn't let her go. She is just my dream horse. She has so much energy. She's crazy. And I just felt like our energy was a great match. So I set out to find a friend for her, because horses are herd animals and they get really sad if they're living alone. Obviously it was going to be more expensive with two, but it was just kind of a non-negotiable with me. So I found this lovely gelding, soft-spoken, and more importantly, he had never been ridden. And that was a dream of mine, to train a horse to be ridden. So I scooped him up, and the time came to start figuring out where the horses would live on the island, because it's fairly wooded. There aren't that many fields, and you know, it's an island that is focused on tourism and not as much agriculture. So I asked around to some people with summer homes that also happen to have fields if they'd be willing to let me keep my horses on their fields, and finally I got a yes from this. Actually, it used to be a farm, and it was so dreamy. This gently sloping hill down to the only lake on the island, and I started getting it set up. It was a little bit overgrown, so I had to cut some brush and set up the fence and the shelter. And finally the day came to drive south and bring the horses back home with me. I spent a day getting the two horses acquainted because they didn't know each other. And that that was the first time where I was like, oh my god, what am I getting myself into? These horses just went at it. Actually, to be more accurate, my mare, who is a bossy bitch, started railing on him, the poor guy. But then I gave them a little bit bigger of an area, I turned them out together, and they figured out how to get along, so that ended up turning out well. But then I went to load them up into the trailer, and neither of them wanted to get into the trailer. You know, I think they could sense that something was up. But finally we got them loaded up, and I drove 3 hours north, and that was the first time that I had ever driven with live animals in a trailer, but everything turned out great, and I got the practice I needed, you know, and there's a first for everything. And then came the next kind of harrowing part. I had to camp out with the horses because the barge was early the next morning and I didn't want to have to leave in the middle of the night. So I camped out with the horses on this kind of barren, gravelly lot, and it was absurd because I didn't want to, because of the way that my mare had kicked and it kind of attacked my gelding, I didn't want them to be in a really small area together. So I left one in the trailer and one turned outside. I like taped these livestock panels up to a trailer. And so I was sleeping in my truck while this horse was just so antsy to get out of the trailer. She was bouncing around the truck all night long. The poor girl. Finally in the morning I was like, okay, she's got to have a little bit of time to get unloaded. I was also nervous about them being willing to load back up into the trailer. And she had given me the most problem. So that was a risk that I was willing to take at that point, having not slept a wink all night because this horse was just antsy to get out of the trailer. So I finally led her into a little enclosure that I had made around the trailer with my gelding banjo, and they just ate hay and it was no problem. I had wished that I had just done that sooner, but oh well. Then came the point where I had to load them up into a smaller trailer because this trailer was coming out to the island to stay for good, because the barge is quite expensive. It's not a normal car ferry, so yeah, the price is quite high. So I couldn't then return the trailer to the mainland, so it had to be a trailer that I was fine with leaving on the island. So it was really small. And these horses in the beginning, they did not want to get into that trailer. They're like, I'm not going to fit in that trailer. So I had luckily gotten some sedative. I gave them some sedative and finally was able to load them into the trailer. Thank God. Next came the barge. Up until the morning that we were loading the horses onto the barge, the organizer of the barge wanted me to lead my horses up this metal ramp onto this scary barge because he was nervous about the clearance for the hitch. But thank God we convinced him to just use his backhoe and push the trailer up onto the barge, because it would have been a nightmare and super dangerous to try to ask these horses to lead up this steep metal ramp. But all's well that ends well, right? He loaded them onto the barge with his backhoe and the hour-long journey commenced. We got to the island, no problem. He took them off the barge with his backhoe and they were home. But the story wasn't over yet, because this horse, my gelding banjo that didn't know how to ride, I tried riding him and he bucked me off. And I was so nervous because, like, I'm a pretty confident person around horses. I grew up riding, but I didn't want to get hurt because I had just accrued this debt to get these horses onto the island, and I needed to work really hard all summer to pay it off. So I knew that I couldn't get hurt. I don't have health insurance, and yeah, I just wasn't ready to take that risk. So I started questioning my ability, my choices to bring these horses out to the island. But eventually I regained my confidence. I started watching Warwick Schiller's training videos. He's really incredible. His whole philosophy is based on connection. So I built a relationship with my horses, and it was slow, looked boring to outsiders, I'm sure, but finally, just a couple months ago, I started riding him and he's done so good, no bucking, he feels so safe, and yeah, that felt really triumphant, because there were so many moments of doubt throughout that journey. And then, not to mention the incredible hullabaloo of getting hay onto the island. Taking a boat off the island, getting my truck, driving an hour, picking up the hay, bringing it back, loading it onto a lobster boat, then bringing it in a truck to the shelter where I keep the hay. It was just like so many steps and so ridiculous, so resource intensive, so time intensive. And this one time I dropped a bunch of bales off of my truck because I was trying to take back more bales so I wouldn't have to go off every couple of weeks to get hay, get a stash up. All right, all loaded up again, hopefully more securely this time, after 3 bales fell from my truck into the road. First time it happened because I'm trying to bring back 40 bales this time, which is more than usual because I'm trying to not do the schlep so often, trying to get some stashed away for winter. Luckily they didn't hit any oncoming cars, but I was panicking there for a second, especially because I have to meet a boat and I don't want them to wait. But it just made me question why in the heck I'm doing what I'm doing with the whole horses on an island thing. And that was a nightmare. So yeah, I had so many ups and downs, but the highs, the getting to ride around the island on horseback, having all these trails to myself, getting to go swimming in the pond and the ocean, just world-class views on horseback, all to myself. it's a feeling that I can't really describe. And I made every inch of that journey work out with my hard work, and stick-to-itiveness and belief in myself, even when I doubted myself. And so I tell this story because chasing your dreams can sometimes feel just so impractical. There's more important things in the world, but the way that it made me feel so alive, and it still makes me feel so alive, I want that for everybody. And I want to share this story in the new year because I know this is a time of self-reflection and review about where your life is going. And if I can just inspire one person to go out and live out their dreams, that is so meaningful to me. I'll leave you with this. You can still live that life that you've always wanted. It's never too late. No, it's not going to be easy, but I believe in you.